Can you feel me? Like the wind moves the leaves. If you could hold these hands, you could see.
The following podcast may contain discussion of domestic and/or sexual violence, stalking, suicide, and PTSD. There is also the possibility of strong language that may be inappropriate for young listeners. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. Views and opinions expressed by guest speakers are those of the guests and do not necessarily reflect the view of Highlines Help for Abused Spouses or any of its funders, employees, or board members.
And it's running toward me, and I'm learning to breathe, learning to breathe. In the quiet, can you give me a sign if you can hear me?
Hi, this is Connie Huffman with Highlines Help for Abused Spouses podcast, Breaking the Silence. Our program has worked with a lot of victims of domestic violence and sexual assault. These victims become very strong survivors. And as they process what has happened to them, healing from this is a long road. Some never get over it, and others search for ways to take the situation and the trauma that it has caused to turn it around for good by talking about their experiences. So today we are honored to have Jeanne Mitchell with us. Welcome, Jeanne.
Welcome. Thank you.
Jeanne wants to tell her story so that people can understand the seriousness of domestic violence and sexual. Jeanne, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I am a lady that has gone through a lot. With those experiences, it has made me a stronger person, I think, in some ways. And I grew up around domestic abuse because my mother was married to my dad that was very abusive, mentally and physically, a narcissistic kind of behavior. They both have passed. I figured that through my childhood that I would have not picked somebody in that kind of atmosphere, but I did. I had been in relationships with people that were mentally or physically abusive. It took me a long time to learn my own value, and I had a lot of good counselors and a lot of good mentors through my childhood too. I just know that from my childhood that because of the sexual abuse that happened in my family system, that it kind of set me up for it. I feel that to pick people that were more abusive than I think for myself. That's what I can say. It was very traumatic through childhood to adulthood. I got pregnant in 6th grade. I didn't know I was pregnant. It was because of being molested, and I didn't even know what was going on. My mom took me to the doctor. She gave me a shot at the hospital, and that night I found out that the baby was aborted. And I didn't even know it. It just happened that I was spending the night at somebody's house that's mom was a nurse. And she explained what was going on with. And there was no understanding. There was no communication in the household because my mother was always not able to communicate about these kind of things. She didn't even let any member of the family know what was going on. It was all hush-hush. She didn't want to, as she would say, it'll upset your dad, so you need to be quiet. And so I never seen her get hit by my father because he always dragged her in by her hair or whatever, woke her up from one of his drunken outbursts and came in and dragged her into the bedroom. Then I would see the after effects the next morning.
So, did you have other siblings?
Yes, I had 2 older brothers. One was 4 years older than me, and one was 6 years older. My 4-year-old brother had gotten abused by a family member, and that family member endured and made him abuse me in front of him. And so later in life, my brother ended up mentally splitting, as his psychiatrist said, because that was the only way he could cope with it. So I lost my brother in 2010 from cancer. I was the one that was there for him over the phone, but he was not able to survive mentally all the circumstances we grew up in. And the psychiatrist said he wasn't able to split in the sense of like in a healthy way, that you would be able to mentally cope with all the abuse that we endured in children.
And so was he abused for a number of years too?
Yes. I don't know all of his story. He didn't really tell me everything, but I do know what situations that happened that I was used to satisfy other people's needs or powers. But he became one of my protectors when I was a teenager. He could always tell me about people that I was dating that he thought were not acceptable. I mean, I giggle because it's a coping mechanism, and it helps me kind of like desensitize. So it's not I'm laughing at the situations. It's the way a counselor taught me that that's what I do. My older brother, he just kept busy. I don't ever remember him actively involved in any situation of the abuse when I was going through therapy dealing with my childhood. He just escaped because my family was not kind to him because he had a different hair color, different color of eyes. So my narcissistic father said he wasn't his. And that led into my brother just trying to survive and take care of himself. And he's a very self-efficient man these days.
So did he leave home at an early age because of maybe some of this?
I think he left when he was 18, when he graduated. He wasn't honored like my younger brother because my younger brother, my brother that's 4 years older than me, he looks like my father, and my older brother doesn't. Older brother doesn't look like either side. But if you went back in family history, like I did some family history, and he does look like some of my great aunts or uncles. So, but yeah, both of my brothers left early. They didn't stick around. I mean, they did come around when the abuse was still going on, and I could call my mom, my oldest brother, and my other brother. He wasn't in the area. He left the military. He went in the military, and he was gone for a couple years. So that's my brother that was 4 years older than me that passed away. And my oldest brother told him that my father, when I called and told him he was beating up Mom, and he said that he talked to my dad, and he said, if this happens ever again, if I get this phone call, you will be going to jail. You have been getting away with this for years. So he would have my brothers drive the car from the bars. They would have to sit in the car, and I remember sitting outside of the bar, and then he would drank, and then my brothers would drive the car home so he wouldn't get a DUI.
So if we went back to when you were in the 6th grade, how did your mother react when she found out that you were pregnant?
She took me to the hospital and told the nurse. I could hear her saying, I was very shy because I knew to keep quiet was my way of surviving the household. She told the nurse, she can't be pregnant. You need to do something. And that's how she handled it. And she would always be mad. She didn't want anybody to know about anything bad going on in the household. My father said later in life, because I became their caregiver later in life.
To your father?
Father and mother.
Oh, okay.
They were still together, even in their 80s. Yes, we went to church and catechisms. We grew up in the Catholic Church. And she made it very clear that we would get a whooping if we told anybody about what was going on in the household.
My question would be that your mom took you to the hospital.
Right?
And they knew what was going on with you.
Yes.
They did not call Child Protective Services?
Nope.
They never called law enforcement?
None.
And was that at the request of your mom, or that just wasn't a practice then for them to try to get you help?
I'm not sure, really. I'm 66 years old, and so this is many years ago. It was in the 70s, I believe. Maybe she was convincing. I don't know. They didn't do anything. I remember when I disobeyed my mother and told the priest, and they came out to the house to talk to my mom to say they would help her. She was very angry. She said it was all a lie.
So she recanted any time?
Yes.
That somebody did reach out?
Yes. Me and my brothers tried to find her a safe place. We all had jobs when we got older. Tried to find, say that we would help her get her own place, and she wouldn't leave. She said that she wasn't going to have another woman in her house taking away from her stuff.
Because she felt that if she left, he would find somebody else.
Of course, yes.
Was he out running around when he was at the bars? Was he with other?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. When I became a teenager, because my brothers moved out, and she would send me down to the bar to find out what he's doing. And we lived out in the country, and it was just a couple miles. It wasn't bad weather or anything. It'd just be foggy. This was in California. But still, I was a teenager and no vehicle or anything, and I would go to the bar, and by this time I started getting a voice, kind of sarcastically, ornery, rebelling. So I would walk in the bar if I seen him with another woman.
And confront him?
I would be sarcastic and say something, Mom's looking for us to come home, so you need to give me a ride home. Yeah, I guess that would be my confronting. Obviously, he wasn't happy with those kind of remarks.
Did you then get into trouble with him? Because you were basically spying on him for your mom?
He never knew I was spying for Mom. I just told him I did it because I wanted to. And by this time, I was rebelling all over the place because I was being promiscuous. I was taught that women were only good for one thing, sex. I wasn't doing well in school. I had learning disabilities, which I didn't find out till later, after I was out of school and went to college. So I was told that I would only be good if I was lucky enough to get a man, because I wasn't pretty enough. That's how they brainwash you, gaslight you, which I learned later in life. So I would go down and try to figure out what he was doing. I knew all the bartenders. They knew who I was when I walked in the door, and just say something. And sometimes he wouldn't leave. Sometimes he would just get drunker and come home.
Would you consider that he was an alcoholic?
Oh, yes. But he was a person that could maintain his job, and he didn't drink every day, and he didn't drink sometimes every month. I mean, he might just have, but when he drank, he had to get drunk. And that's when he would be physically abusive with my mother. He was mentally abusive, and he would make her believe that she wasn't capable of doing anything without him. He had her brainwashed to think that she wasn't capable of handling things. A good example is my grandpa. When he passed away, they willed the car to my mother. My mother never drove. I was a teenager at that time, and my mother was trying to learn how to drive, and she was having problems learning how to drive, and my dad was her coach, which was making it hard. And Dad, I believe, was jealous because she had a better car than him that Grandpa gave her. They would go out drives, and we would have to go, and all he would do is demean her the whole time that she drove. And she accidentally hit a dog, and after that, she just couldn't handle it. She wouldn't drive anymore. She sold the car. It was hard to see. My mom's side of the family was very supportive in a lot of ways, when they come to visit, because they all lived in different states. When I started getting my voice, I let them all know what was going on. My mom would just tell them that was a lie, that I was wanting attention, or I don't know. It would just...
You were just being a troublemaker.
Yeah. We had to wash clothes by hands out of scrub boards, because even though my uncle bought us a brand new washing machine, I'm telling this story because this is how to explain how my father was as a narcissistic abuser. We had a brand new washer and dryer my uncle bought her. He put it in the back room where it could be hooked up, but he would never hook it up. And so my uncle came to visit 5 years later and told him if he didn't get it fixed and put up, he was going to do it himself in my dad's house. Because he said he didn't buy it for him to just look at. So it got put together while my uncle was there. But that whole time, he said we didn't deserve that. Women don't deserve that. They should be working for...
So a scrub boarder was her job.
Yes. Yeah.
To not have any kind of conveniences.
Yeah. That was his thoughts about how women were. And he had a rough childhood. I did a lot of research because I wanted to try to understand why he was the way he was, what come up from this. And his father was an alcoholic, my grandpa was, and he died on one of the times he was driving home with another alcoholic, and they got in a car accident and they died. And my understanding from some of my dad's sisters, my aunts, was that that's how my grandpa was. That was how his father was. So it just went from one generation to generation and didn't break the cycle. It was hard to imagine when I look back how mentally I was able to survive. And then I picked a couple relationships that were physically abusive. One I stayed in for a couple years, but then I started looking in my children's eyes. I couldn't put them through with what I had lived through.
Do you think that because of what happened to you as a child, as you got older and got into your own relationships, that because of that you picked people that were the same type as your dad?
Yeah, very similar. Or it's some kind of mentally abusive situation. I might not pick a physical abuser, but I might pick somebody that was manipulative and that was mentally abusive or gaslighted me, or, I would believe I wasn't worthy of somebody because I had those negative tapes in my head that I wasn't good enough to be able to, I wasn't smart enough to change my life's goals. I wasn't going to be anybody but somebody's wife or girlfriend.
So it was looking for relationships that, even though were unhealthy, they were familiar to you.
Oh, yeah. And I might start dating somebody that had a better mindset, but that was not comfortable. And so I would maybe sabotage that relationship.
And how would you sabotage?
When I was young, I cheated on them because I thought I didn't deserve that person, or maybe I didn't think I was smart enough, couldn't keep up with that person.
And again, that's very typical for victims to do, is they go where they feel the most comfortable, even though it may be a very traumatic situation. They go to that because it's kind of like an old pair of comfortable shoes. It's not that you want to be abused, it's that you have the mindset that this is where I belong.
Yes. It is the mindset is that you're not worthy enough to have something better. I started looking for people even when I was young, for people to, I don't even know why, but even in catechism, I kind of attached myself to a nun. And she kind of helped me see that what was going on in the household wasn't my fault, even though I could help others to tell, people dating and stuff like that through my years. I still wasn't picking people that were on those mindsets.
Okay.
Then I went to therapy, and I've done a lot of work. I've done, I've even picked boyfriends that mothers or aunts were therapists, and I picked them specifically for that reason.
Oh, okay.
So that I could pick their brain. So I knew there was a better life because I'd seen it in other families, but I didn't know how to get there. And I didn't know if I was worthy enough or if I was smart enough, or, I was still in that negative mindset. And it took a lot to work. And it's a constant thing because you carry that stuff around, your baggage. And there's days when, today, I can have a bad mindset about something, and I'll go back to that and hear all that negative stuff, you're not worthy, or you're not smart enough. Why are you going to college? You're not smart enough to go to college. You can't get a degree because you're not smart enough.
It sticks with you for pretty much, I think, your whole life, and especially the not worthiness that people feel. It is in any given situations. A lot of times you second guess yourself, should I even be here thinking about this? This is stupid for me to even consider doing, because, well, I know that I'm not smart enough. It's, again, the trauma carries through and stays with you forever. It's just, would you say it's how you learn to deal with it and understand why you are feeling the way you're feeling?
I figure it's layers of it. It's, you take away from, at least my perception, is that I've taken away different things that I've accomplished. Realized that through therapy, I guess I should say, that I've walked through doors and decided that this is not going to stop me. I do a lot of inner child work, and so that's real deep work. And I've gone through some groups like Parents United and different things that I did in California, and the one-on-one counseling, where I've learned that it's not mine, even though there's that negative voice that will pinch at you and say, try to bring you down. I have to say to myself, this isn't mine. And I tell myself, I'm going to be okay. We're going to be okay. We're going to move forward.
But that took years of counseling?
Yes, a lot of work. And not beating myself up for the bad choices I made, that took a lot of work, because a lot of those time periods were when I was raising my children and I was scared to deal with it. And a lot of it was stuff that I didn't remember. So I kind of blocked it. And so when there would be somebody maybe familiar, but in a bad way, and I didn't know it was that really bad, and they might be mentally abusive to my kids or other means. And so it took me a lot of work to get to that point where I started opening the doors and saying, I have to do whatever it takes to protect my kids. And that means going through, seeing the traumas that I went through, it was not an easy choice. I would never advise the people the way I did. I wanted to do it all at once. And I pushed, and I just started having flashbacks all over the place. And I'd be driving down the road. I'd be watching it. It'd be like watching a movie, and you're a little kid in the movie. And I would never advise anybody to handle it that way, because I was reading books and doing all kinds of stuff because I wanted not to let something bad happen to my kids.
And do you think that that's a lot of times where victims are, I guess, where they are seeing this with their kids, watching it, and the fear that your kids are going to have to grow up the way you did? And that a lot of times is what motivates a lot of victims into trying to change what they're living in and to move on because of the kids.
Yes, I think some of that happens, but sometimes I've seen, because now I work to be a counselor, I'm working up to become a therapist. I am doing therapy, but I'm still in my candidacy department. That's another story. What I've seen through working with other people and through doing my own work is sometimes people and they're thinking that they're protecting, but something triggers. A wall comes up and something scares them. And it's like there's a little kid inside, or your nervous system goes wacko and says, I don't want to deal with this. No, this is too scary. I don't want to. So they shut down. They don't know why, and they can run the other way.
So with all of the therapy that you've talked about that you've had, if you could talk to that little girl again, if you could see yourself as that child, what would you say to her?
I do it all the time. I have a house, I call it. And the work I learned was going in, when I feel the traumas, I can mentally go down. I can do it so well. I don't even need a therapist anymore. I can walk into the house mentally, and I sit down, and I might see the abuse going on when I walk into that room. I dissolve the situation as the adult. I tell her that this isn't her fault. She didn't do anything for this to happen, that she deserves to be a kid, and she should honor that. And I'm going to protect her, and nobody else is going to hurt her.
And how does she respond, do you think?
In my house, she goes back to playing with the dolls or doing whatever. She may come up and hug me. She may cry, because that's probably what I needed to do when I was a kid. And then she goes back, and there's a calmness, which is a calmness that comes over me. So that's That's the type of therapy I have done for myself, but for some people, I don't suggest it.
Okay, and why would that be?
It's very hard work. And in the sense of, I call it, I probably fried some brain cells doing it because I'm walking through the same door. And I had to learn how I can separate myself. I learned how to do this from working with a nun, is that I literally take myself out of the situation. I'm not mentally there. So when these people were molesting me as a child, and I have dual amounts of people, I am able to leave the room. I'm not there. I learned how to do it. I don't know how to tell somebody else to do it. I don't think that it's, unless you are able to do that, that trying to remember those things is really healthy for you, because re-walking through it is really traumatizing, and it's your whole body feels the whole thing, your mind feels the whole thing, and that's not something I think is the best for people.
Could you say that it would probably depend on the severity of what they experienced and how much they have been able to work on it before they try to do that, as opposed to just saying, okay, this is a step that you can try, early in the trauma part of it?
I think that what I've seen from other people trying to do it, because it was a part of this group thing that I was going through, that some people in my groups could handle it, and some people ended up in the hospital because it was
with nervous breakdowns or
yes.
this type.
Some did not come back completely and ended up on medication for the rest of their lives.
Would that be PTSD?
Probably. It could be.
Complex PTSD?
Yes.
Okay.
That's why, for me, it would take, I would never want to put somebody into that mode as a therapist. I think it needs to be a psychiatrist that has special tools that is above my training level. I've seen girls do EMDR, and it seems to work well for them. And then I've seen other people that it hasn't. Depends on the person. And I think really a therapist really needs to watch people's body language. Their eye movements, their hands, what they're doing physically. And you need to be able to shut down real quick, because if you're causing more trauma to that person, then I think then you need to back off.
Right. I agree with you.
I think, like you said earlier, maybe taking a walk or doing certain things, if it got overwhelming. I think that's a big thing, and I don't think a lot of therapists do it. I do art therapy. I find what my clients like, and if they want to talk about some traumatic, I literally find out what is their soothing coping mechanisms, and I will have it there if we're going to get into something. That's my belief.
Okay, so we left off where you were in some relationships and that you picked those people that were more like your dad. And what happened then after that?
I still picked some really destructive people. Some were not good for my kids, and I've apologized to my children when I started dealing with that situation. And I've come to realize that you might pick somebody like, that is physically abusive the first time, and you get away from that kind of abuse. Okay, the next time you might pick somebody that is very verbally abusive and is out front and gaslighting towards you, okay? Then you get away from that person. You might start getting away from that and learn from your own, I say in my own recovery, learn that that's not healthy for me. Okay, then I might get somebody that I call is nice, but It's a different type of nice. It's a I learned this from my family that they're they're talking to you, but they're saying things to you that most people mean it in a nice way, but they're not meaning it that way. They're cutting you. And so because I had different traumas and different negative people in my life from childhood to adult, I had to learn each one of them, if they were helping me or were they hurting me. Were they wanting me to grow, or were they people that were trying to keep me in a box?
And did you test everybody?
Oh, yes. And everybody.
And everybody.
And trust issues, yeah.
Just waiting to see how far you could push them before they would become abusive.
I guess I did in one way, but because I had kids at an early age, I was also told because of all the molestations, I would never be able to have a kid. And it was my fault. A doctor told me that.
So how many children do you have?
I have 2 biological, and then I had 3 miscarriages. Well, 2 miscarriages and 1 the abortion. I guess it's an abortion. I don't know what it would have been called. And when I was in 6th grade, it was a shot. That's all I know that started my whole cycle. And it was she said what I heard her tell my mom was that she's going to give me a little extra dose.
And so you were far enough along that you knew the sex of the baby.
Yeah, the nurse said she said it was a boy.
Okay.
I didn't look at it. I was just too freaked out.
Oh, I can only imagine. 6th grade.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that had to have been an incredible trauma.
Yeah. And then I went to school, and I trusted one person, and then she announced it in front of the whole school in my classroom. Yeah. I went and locked myself in the bathroom. It took my teacher, a male teacher, who felt very uncomfortable, I could tell, and another student trying to get me out of the bathroom. Mm. And he just shut everything down in the classroom. We didn't discuss it. He didn't call my parents. He didn't do anything.
So at no point during this, how would you say the abuse, your dad abused you up until what? Sexually abused you up until what?
My dad abused me once when I was a teenager. My brother that was 4 years older than me abused me. Sorry, I didn't clarify.
Okay. So if, I guess what I'm saying is, how old were you when it actually stopped at home?
When I ran away.
Okay. And at what age did you run away?
First time 16, second time 17.
And when you ran away at 16, did you just go back, or did they find you? Or
I came back home, and then Dad threw me in juvenile hall. He said that he was going to teach me a lesson. I wanted to go live with another family, and he said no, and he told me that I had to come home. And so he threw me in juvenile hall.
And so then you left permanently at 17?
Yeah. I mean, I still came back, and as a caregiver of my mother, I kept on coming back to help my mother for many years. And then I was promiscuous. I didn't think I could get pregnant. I thought, growing up with the belief system that I grew up in, that I was this big sinner, that I was just this horrible person, and I wasn't going to be able to have children, and it was all my fault.
Well, did you say that a doctor had told you that you wouldn't be able to have any children?
Yeah.
And why did he say that? I mean, what was the reasoning behind the fact that you couldn't have kids?
Because of all the sexual abuse from my brother.
Did it have anything to do with the abortion that they forced on you?
I think, if I'm remembering this correctly, because it was so many years ago, I was taken to him because I was having, after the shot, problems clotting, bleeding and stuff. And so Mom took me to see him. And she told him. And she told him not to tell my dad. My dad found out when he was 80-some years old, when we were sitting outside at his house.
Did you tell him? Somebody else tell him? Or how did you find out?
Because I brought it up. I said, did you know this was going on, between my brother? And he said, no.
Did you believe him?
My father's very narcissistic, so I never knew what was real and what wasn't. I do know that when we were talking about it, he said that something similar happened to him when he was a kid. I do believe that.
Well, when you talked about, the generational, abuse from one generation to the other, why that stands to reason that, there's a big possibility that he was also at some point sexually molested too.
Right.
You got away from a number of abusers and then decided that you wanted to go to school to be a therapist.
Yeah, I went to Oregon to help my mother. My dad got dementia, and this was in 2008. So I went to Oregon. I had been wanting to go back to school, but I was scared to. When I got my high school diploma, I went to college then, and I was like in my late 20s. And when I went to college, I found out I had all these learning disabilities, and that explained why I couldn't learn very well. So when I moved to Oregon, I know I'm jumping around. I went there. I was a CNA. I got a job in Oregon. I helped my parents. I got hurt taking care of my dad. He had a panic attack and he pulled my arm out of socket. Then I had 3 jobs: home care and working in a facility and another home care place. So I could no longer do those jobs anymore. So I decided, okay, I'm going to go back to college. I still got to do something, because obviously this is going to cause me where I can't do that anymore. I had seen a doctor. So I went back to college, and I was fearful the whole time, arguing. I'm very spiritual. I have a relationship with my higher power, which I choose God. And I was arguing with him the whole time. I said, I want to go, but this other side of me says I'll fail. And I've made God my best friend. So I would argue with him about it. Something would open up, and I would go to some free class. I say, well, if I pass this, then I'll go back to college. And I did. I passed. And so that opened the door for many more adventures, and I just kept on pushing. I have gotten an attitude, and I've had a good support system when I went to college, that even though I don't 100% sometimes believe that I can be successful, I have a support system that has been there for me and said, I'll show you what you've done now, and look at already what you've done. If you couldn't have done this, then why do you can finish this up? So that's where I start pushing. I don't take negativity very well from people. So I keep on pushing to move forward. And I tell myself, I've always wanted to help other women and my grandchildren, my children, to realize, even with these learning disabilities, even with all the things you go through, traumas or whatever, you still can move forward. And you can be a good mentor and pass it down to somebody else. That's my attitude.
So what would you say your relationship was with your parents in those later years?
Oh, I was blunt. By that time, I was at a space where I could be very blunt. We sat down, me and my mom talked. She still couldn't accept that the things that happened when I was in 6th grade were her. She could have handled it differently. That's what I told her. I said, you should have handled this a lot better, where I could have came out of this a lot better. And she said, well, I had no choice. So she couldn't take accountability for any of that because she said that my dad would have blown up.
Well, did your mother come from a background of abuse too?
No. As far as I know, I have met my aunts. My grandmother is I would say one of my mentors.
So do you want to talk about, you've mentioned a couple different times that you had some learning disabilities and that you found that out when you started college, was it?
Yes. I was in my late 20s. I went back and got my high school diploma after I ran away, after my dad had abused me, and I lived on my own. And then I went back to get my high school diploma after my kids were born. So I got that when I was in my early 20s, and then I moved on and went to go to college. My disabilities, I would say I have dyslexia, I have attention deficit disorder, I have a concentration problem, I have a frontal lobe problem. There's 5 of them, but I don't have them right in front of me.
And so how have you worked through those? How have they affected, your life up until now?
How far do you want me to go back on that one?
As far back as you know.
I didn't have a lot of positive teachers. It wasn't that they were mean, but they didn't know what to do with me. My early teachers, they just say, she's a nice kid, she's compliant, she's shy, she don't talk.
Do you think the school knew what was going on?
Maybe some of them, because my dad was having an affair with some of the ranchers' wives, and we all lived in a community, small little community.
Well, it's really hard to hide stuff like that when you live in a small community. And even a lot of times when, the people that are having, issues don't believe that anybody else knows about it.
Yes.
What goes on behind closed doors.
Oh, and
But
yeah.
In a small community, they seem to know a lot more than what people believe.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times they don't know the actual truth. They just, rumor city.
Yes.
Type thing. The teachers just basically
passed me.
Felt that you were just, this shy little girl that would do what she was told to do. And so they didn't bother to try to test you or anything.
Well, in those days,
they didn't have those kind of tests.
No.
Like, of course, what they have now. But nobody suspected that you had any kind of a learning disability.
They didn't even talk about learning disabilities in those days.
Yeah. That's probably true. Yeah.
I had one teacher, her name was Miss Box. And I don't remember, it was 4th or 6th grade. She asked my parents to let me stay after school to help me. And she was dumbfounded that she couldn't get me to pronounce words correctly. She tried phonics, she tried different things, and she couldn't get me to write a sentence correctly and different things like that. I went to high school. I got raped and by a girlfriend's boyfriend, and that scenario ended up being very toxic, and I just didn't want to be at high school anymore because they were popular kids, and it wasn't their fault. It's just the population they hung out with. So I ended up deciding, I found that there was a continuation for troublemakers school where one of my friends was going to, and I went there and I found out that they would help me better. And I cut school at the regular high school and went over to the other school and hung out with my friend. And the teachers noticed that I wasn't supposed to be there. And I told them I wanted to come here because I really was learning from them. But anyway, my father put a negative twist to that because he didn't like anybody to know that I was going to a continuation school.
So what kind of work did your dad do?
My dad was a ditch tender. He had dyslexia, and he couldn't read. He only went to 8th grade. He did amaze me. He learned how to read enough to become the superintendent of all the ditch tenders where he worked. And he learned how to write up the reports with the help of other people. So I was very impressed with that because my mom was the one that was able to write, read, and do all of them. And he couldn't do any of that. I guess I got most of it from him. So,
Okay.
But I also got that push. If I want something, I have to go get it.
What would you say is the biggest reason that you wanted to do this podcast?
I want others to realize no matter where you come from or what type of trauma you come from or whatever happened that's holding you in a space of negativity or trauma that's keeping you not moving forward, there is a way to get better. There is means of moving forward, and everybody should know that they have a special gift and they shouldn't hold themselves back.
So this is, I guess, the biggest reason that you wanted to do the podcast is so that you can let other people know that there is a way out of the abuse and there is a way to begin healing from it.
Yes.
Is there anything else that you would like to talk about right now?
I can't think of anything at this moment.
Okay. Well, Jeannie, I am so happy that you came, that we met, and that you wanted to tell your story. And I think that it will help a lot of people look at their possible situations and know that there is a way out. And no matter how bad you feel about yourself at times, that there's help out there so that you can break that cycle.
I believe that 100%. I believe that everybody has something to give to everybody.
So I thank you very much for coming today. This is Connie Huffman with Breaking the Silence. Be safe, be happy, and love life.
Ready or not, I'll be here, waiting on the light to come shine on me. Try to find